Back again with the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We will talk a little bit about the schedule. What's leaked out? Not much. We'll get the whole schedule coming up tomorrow. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, we do a stream live. You can be a part of the conversation, as many people already are, as we stream live 9 p.m. on 9:30 p.m. on Tuesdays Central Time. We'll also give our floor and ceiling comps, Chiefs players from the past, for each and every one of these Chiefs picks, which I think will be interesting to see what the floor is, what the ceiling is. Is it a wide margin? Is it the same margin? We will talk about that. Also, what we learned from this little exercise. We always like that as well. We're doing it right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on a Tuesday. And let's start with what we know about the schedule, Sam. We have got a couple of the games that are out there. I'm sure by, 10 a.m.? On Wednesday morning, we'll have pretty much the whole thing as it all starts leaking out. Shh! An NFL employee is with us, so we don't want that getting out there. They're very hush-hush on this, so
it's all right in front of me right
now. Yeah. But the leaks that are out there, Chiefs at Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's the opener on the Friday, September 5th. The game after the opener on Friday, September 5th. Opener be on Thursday. Eagles get that right. And then the Christmas game, Broncos at Chiefs on Christmas Day. I suppose neither one of these things surprises you, Sam. Do you have any reaction to the two that we know about right now?
Yeah, I'm stunned they're going to play the Chargers and Broncos this year. I didn't see that coming. In all seriousness, I mean, look, the Chiefs are the biggest draw in the
comedy
NFL.
People. It's called comedy.
The Chiefs are the biggest draw in the NFL, so their schedule falls into accordance to that. I mean, this YouTube is going to broadcast the game that's in Brazil, and so the NFL gets to offer them the Chiefs, and YouTube pays more money because the Chiefs are involved in a game. I'm sure that there was a bidding process for which slot the Chiefs fell on Christmas Day. I'm sure that Amazon won that bidding war, and therefore the Chiefs are playing the night game on Christmas, which I feel like from a media perspective, we lost one when the opener, we gained one by at least, if they're going to play on Christmas, it's Christmas night. So that's where I always look at these from a perspective, and these are also
the perspective is how it helps.
How it affects me. And the two takeaways from that is your Sundays are free on those weeks to watch the entire NFL schedule, not just the Chiefs.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. What's your takeaway about those two games that have become quite public, Jeff?
Well, it's certainly interesting that the Chiefs are once again playing on Christmas. I mean, it's 3 years in a row they've been doing the Christmas game, and they've made each one. So Sam's right. I mean, they're a hot draw, and I think that's tough. Tough on a team. Every year you're being put in that position. It's not like it's Dallas Cowboys, Detroit Lions, and you've had this tradition going on for decades. So I do think at some point they're going to have to move them off that tilt. But going to Brazil, I think it makes sense too. I mean, they're a very sexy team, and You saw that game played out with Philadelphia and Green Bay last year. I'm sure that, look, the Chiefs don't shy away from this type of stuff. They want to be in these kind of positions to sell their brand. And so I'm sure, the higher ups are very happy about that. But again, it's when you have this kind of travel and you play on these kind of games, it can be tough over the course of an entire season.
I think that's fair to say that Clark Hunt grew up a lot of his, I don't know, maybe not formative years, but his young adult years when he was lieutenant to his father running the team, seeing the Packers fill the house, the Steelers fill the house at Arrowhead, the Cowboys fill the house, even other teams, Bronco fans come in and have a sizable presence. And now he goes on road games and sees the Chiefs taking up a lot of the seats in other places. They become one of those marquee teams that, brings a strong fan base. And, after watching that for so many years, he's like, this is my opportunity, right? I have Patrick Mahomes. I have the ultimate weapon in the universe, and I'm going to use it. And I'm going to garner as many fans as I can right now, because what we find is even the Steelers are mediocre. Definitely when the Packers even suck, Packer fans are still there. They don't leave the team. And so I think that's what it is. I agree. I think this is the business side. You want someone to travel, go overseas, we'll go. We want to grow fans anywhere we can grow fans. And I think that's kind of his thought on Christmas Day. Yet another standalone game. I'll pay any price, whatever it takes. Let's go. I'll even volunteer to do it each and every year. And we know some owners are, maybe like, we don't want it. I think it's clear the Chiefs are putting their hand up for this.
They are. Like Mark Donovan told Blair Kirkhoff, I think it was in November, they want to be on Christmas every year. Oh, yeah. I think the NFL is reluctant to make that the Lions or Cowboys type of assignment, but Jeff's right. I mean, they're seeking these games, and
they're seeking. They were the first ones on the international. They are seeking those games. They want to be out there. They want to be. They want to be growing the brand. Here's what I think is interesting. Which is more likely? Who thinks that the Chiefs are ever going to get to own Christmas Day? That they're going to get a Lions Cowboys treatment on Thanksgiving? Because I don't think it'll ever happen. I think they're happy to oblige them while they're a big draw, but I don't think the league's ever going to give that up. Right? They're going to.
No, we could see it for 10 straight years, and people think it's an official thing, right, but it's actually not. I mean, the Lions have been on Thanksgiving through some really rough.
Yeah. Well,
Jeff had some rough Thanksgivings.
Yeah, and I'll go this far, Jeff. I said this today, and I think it's true. I think the NFL is closer, and I don't think they're close to doing this, but I think they're closer to taking the Lions and Cowboys off at Thanksgiving as a permanent spot than they are giving Christmas to the Chiefs.
That's possible too. That's possible. I mean, look,
I don't see either happening, but I think they would be like enough. Like one of those teams starts sucking for a while, I think they'd be like, all right, we're opening this up. Enough
for a while.
Yeah.
Have the Lions not done that?
No, but I think now they have.
What they got to do?
They have, but it was a different time. They didn't play 2 or 3 games on Christmas, right? They didn't have that until 15 years ago or so. They didn't have that third game on Thanksgiving. It just kind of was. This is how we've always done things. But they don't operate that way anymore. They don't operate as that's how we've always done things. Like it would come with a fight. It would be a price. It's a fight. It'll come after Jerry Jones passes. I will tell you that, or passes the torch, one or the other. I don't think it'll ever happen with Jerry Jones in control because of the kind of weight he carries. But I think, like I said, I could see a day where they're like, listen, you have sucked for 10 years. You're off. And the rest of the ownership do it. Or look, we can make more money and this is it. But we have to guarantee this streaming service that they get to pick their game on Thanksgiving. And once they started flexing games, I think we're looking at almost every week, every game, every week, ultimately being a flex situation.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also, I don't think the Thanksgiving, I think that's more about the Jerry Joneses. It's more about the Ford family fighting for that. But I feel like there's so many games every week that are on weird times of the calendar now that it's not as big of a deal to say, because everybody's playing on. What I'm trying to say is I think there are all these teams playing in Brazil now, or in Ireland, or Germany, or whatever on Thursday nights in flex. It's just there's so much going on with the schedule now. I don't think it's that big a deal that the Lions and the Cowboys have Thanksgiving. I think Christmas is a little different because it changes every year, right? I think Chiefs playing on Tuesday Christmas game.
If it wasn't like Lamar Hunt asked to get onto Thanksgiving for a long time, and he asked for that third slot, and they didn't give it to him. I think it's a bigger deal amongst the owners than me. Maybe you're thinking.
Well, they were like 6-10 back then when he was asking for it.
Exactly. And I don't think the league will ever sit through 40 years of ass football on the Lions' part again and leave them on Thanksgiving. I don't think that'll happen. When they go down for a long time and show ineptness, I think they'll pull
I don't know. They've been pretty inept.
Yeah, well, they've been
3 playoff appearances in 30 years. How inept do you have to be?
I just think it's a different time. Once you start giving the networks the power to go pick games, I don't think they're going to sit there and be like, okay, our marquee standalone, we're going to accept bad football. Like whoever has that Christmas slot is getting a great game, but on Thanksgiving you're going to just shovel a turd at them. I think it'll change.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. There's no point in arguing about it now, but when it happens, I'll be here to tell you I told you so.
I think we'll all be dead.
At
this rate, 30 more years.
I'm a picture of Elf. No chance.
Once Jeff dies, on his behalf, I'll tell you he told you so.
Okay. if you want to go there, yeah, we'll see. All right, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do here. We're going to basically give you the highs and lows, the ceiling and the floor, floor and ceiling, whichever order you want to go in. We're going to give ex-Chiefs players, former Chiefs players. I did all draft picks. Right, all previous draft picks.
Wow.
We didn't specify that, but I did all draft picks.
Good for you.
For what it will be. So mine might be a little harder to zero in. We'll give some context to it as to what it is. So what did you learn, Jeff, from doing this exercise? You and I have done it before, a couple times before.
Yeah.
This is the first go around for Sam.
Well, it gets harder to do it as you get farther away from the way football used to be. So. Yeah, I think the last couple of years we've been able to joke about guys who played the 90s or maybe even the 80s, but you just can't do that as often now because the game is so different. So to compare an edge rusher today to somebody who played 20 years ago is a lot harder. To compare a receiver, a linebacker, they just do different stuff. And so I felt like I was a lot more caught up in guys who played within the last 10 years than I was in past years of doing this exercise.
Sam, I hear Jeff saying he mailed it in. Didn't look back that far. That's what I don't know what you're hearing, but that's what I'm hearing. What'd you learn?
I thought it was hard enough to find comparisons. I cannot believe you went strictly with Chiefs draft picks. I find that to be an impressive piece of this. So interested to see your list. This was a hard exercise.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it's hard. All right. Let's start with Josh Simmons. Sam, if it was so hard, you want to lead us off? What'd you come up with?
Sure. I guess the other broad takeaway that I went with, look, we could always go with ceiling, just all pro, floor, complete bust. I at least put like parameters that I thought were realistic, even if not likely.
Time out. Can we real quick? Can I make a point to Jeff? Hadn't even given any names. He's already making excuses, Jeff. Not even one name.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
he's already making excuses.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm not going for the hot takes here, even though there is a big gap between the two players I have for every comparison. So right off the bat, not a Chiefs draft pick. I've got the ceiling for Josh Simmons. I have realistic ceiling for Josh Simmons as DJ Humphries, an athletic player who relies on his athleticism, made an All-Pro. I don't have him. See, I didn't go as their.
Did he make an All-Pro or did he make a Pro Bowl?
He's a Pro Bowl player. Pro Bowl.
You said all pro.
Okay, Pro Bowl player. It's not his first year was an adjustment, which I think would be the case for Josh Simmons, only having played limited time at a Big Ten school. Then his next 4 years, DJ Humphries allows 0 sacks, 4 sacks, 2 sacks, and 3 sacks. So 10 sacks in 4 years. Like, you'll take that with Josh Simmons. Gets a second contract and a third contract as a left tackle, 2 multi-year contracts. By the way, I picked him because I think a lot of people are going to pick the same guy for that one. For low, I've got Donald Stevenson. And the reason I chose Donald Stevenson is because I felt like for years the Chiefs really wanted Donald Stevenson to be the guy. And they gave him a lot of chances. He couldn't prove it. And I think because Josh Simmons is a first-round pick, you could get trapped into that same corner of telling yourself this is an ideal situation. Wouldn't this be best case scenario if Josh Simmons winds up being the guy, and therefore he could get more chances than the average guy. So that's how I came up with that one.
Okay, that's interesting. I like it. Donald Stevenson. That is a floor. There's no doubt about it. That is a floor. Jeff.
He played 5 years in the league.
Yeah,
He didn't play 5 years in the league. He was in the league for 5 years. He didn't play much, period. But he was in the league for 5 years.
I don't think every year. I think he was starting games,
and it was a travesty every time he did. It was not good.
It's the floor.
I try to remember when was he here? What year was he here? What year?
He was a Scott Pioli draft pick. He was a third or fourth rounder.
But he was part of the Andy years too. Remember, he forced the was it Sharkandrick West fumble? Forced the fumble on his own guy in Minnesota. Certainly remember that play, right? Like that was a defining moment of those years.
The Pioli years, I've kind of wiped away, erased from my memory.
Of a butt fumble? Is that what's going on here? He was a third-round pick in 2012. Dontari Poe, Jeff Allen,
started 37 games, by the way.
Mine says he started 1.
Donald Stevenson. He started.
You got the right one.
He started 7 years, then 7 years, then none, then 7, then 12, then 4 in his career.
Donald Stevenson. Oh, yeah, when I opened it up, it said 1 on the big thing. When I opened it up, God, yeah, he did. He started 7 games. Oh, God, that was, I'd block that out of my head. I'll be honest with you. Yeah.
3 different years he started 7 games for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and when you start 7 games in multiple years, that kind of says it. Like
that's my point. You gave multiple chances because you wanted that situation to work out. That's how I picked him.
You didn't work out, or you were not plan A, one or the other. All right, Jeff, what do you got?
I wanted to go Brandon Albert for the ceiling here, but I just went with the same pick, which was.
By the way, that was when I said I shied away from somebody who I had because I thought everyone would pick him. It was Brandon Albert, so it's funny you mentioned his name right off the bat.
Did you go Brandon Albert ceiling?
I went Eric Fisher. Eric Fisher for the ceiling, which is to me a safer pick. A guy who probably was not as good a player as Brandon Albert was. I don't know who went to how many Pro Bowls there. I know Albert probably went to some in Miami too. But I think if he has that kind of stretch where he's a reliable left tackle, a guy who you can count on for 10 years, that's a positive. And I don't think he's, as much as he's been hyped up as being the best tackle in his class, if he was healthy, this isn't a great class for tackles. You got to keep that in mind. So I think his talent level is probably going to be closer to Eric Fisher if he's at his best. And then if it's a bust, the easy call is always Trezell Jenkins. Going back to that one, who was from my alma mater, a left tackle who had promise but never showcased it and never really did anything for the Chiefs. And I think he did not play as long as Donald Stevenson played, right? I'm pretty sure he didn't do anything in the league.
There's no way. There's
close to Donald Stevenson.
No.
Greg Hill beat him up in the locker room, and that was pretty much it for his time in Kansas City.
Maybe that's the profile that Soren had accidentally pulled up because he started 1 game in his career.
That might have been. Kid Dynamite says John Tate. I don't think that's a bad one there. So we said Willie Rofe. Come on. I think we're getting a little.
Yeah.
Victor Riley.
Yeah.
Victor Riley.
I thought about him. He was a right tackle, though, wasn't he?
He did play right tackle for the
Chiefs. And Trezell Jenkins was the 31st pick in the draft.
Yeah. Temecula is Jordan Black. Everyone has mentioned mine. Trezell Jenkins is clearly the floor. It's the floor because I think of the injury possibilities. What if he's never healthy? That he's not going to play. That would be Trezell Jenkins getting like literally nothing. So Trezell Jenkins is the floor and Brandon Albert is the ceiling. It's a great comp. In the sense that some people were kind of looking at this guy as a guard. Brandon Albert was drafted as a tackle guard combo. I think, Simmons, he's the best guy. He's the best guy. He wasn't the best guy a year ago, right? And then he played 5 games, and all of a sudden he's the best guy. I think there's a little bit of a reach on that. That's why I didn't go to John Alt or somebody along those lines. So I think Brandon Albert, Trezell Jenkins to Brandon Albert. I do think that we agree there's a huge chasm here because of the injury.
Yeah, that's a wide gap. Yeah.
There's a lot. All right, Omarr Norman-Lott. Sam, what do you got on Omarr Norman-Lott? This was my most difficult one to figure out.
Yeah, I thought this one was difficult, but this one also wound up being my narrowest range because I don't think he's got the highest ceiling. So I got really specific with this one. I said 2024 Tershawn Wharton, I think is his ceiling. So 6.5 sacks was his year last year. Like that's a really good year for a D tackle, a guy who's a pass rush first guy. But look, I mean, there's a reason the Chiefs have made this comparison. I thought this was the easiest one to make.
Okay.
For the floor, I went with Turk McBride. And the reason I did that is because I read one scouting report that touted his quickness and his great burst off the line of scrimmage.
Uh-huh.
And Turk McBride was never a full-time player because he was just, he's a guy that came in not playing a ton of snaps, and he didn't play that many in the NFL either.
Okay. I like it. So we got a narrow deal. Although Tershawn Wharton was pretty good. Turk of the Tank and Turk combo from the NFL, what was the Hard Knocks season for
maybe the
Chiefs.
Worst Hard Knock season ever.
It was
most boring.
I don't know.
I didn't even think about the fact that this is Turk and Turk, but yeah, I went with two Turks for that comparison.
Yeah.
A very narrow range.
There was Tank Tyler was the other defensive lineman that was in that one. The Raider Hard Knocks was god awful too with John Gruden. Jeff, what do you got?
Same exact ones. Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah. For the same reason, Tershawn Wharton and Turk McBride. Wharton, for the obvious reasons, I think at best Norman-Lott's going to be a rotational player. I don't think he's ever going to be a star. And so if you can be what Tershawn Wharton was, and if you're able to be a guy who ends up getting a contract somewhere else for big money, that's a win for this team because it means he played significant snaps. And Turk McBride, because this team hasn't really drafted a lot of pass rushing defensive tackles, a lot of run stuffing guys in there. Like someone threw out Dan Saliamu in the comment section, but he's not built like Dan Saliamu, and he's not built like Glenn Dorsey. None of these guys, even some of the maybe Ryan Sims comes close. He was supposed to be more of a pass rush type, but he was a guy who played a lot of downs in college. So Turk McBride was a second round pick, and he didn't do a whole lot. I think he had 9.5 career sacks, and so I think that's an easy one to make.
This one was hard doing just the draft picks, I'm going to tell you, but I do think that I don't think it's a narrow one. I think this could be a complete sale job. Number one, I think they took a D tackle because they didn't like how they were coming off the board. I don't know that they wanted to take this guy this high, but they went, my God, they're coming off the board. I think it's by far the biggest reach that they made. I think it's by far, and it's a pick just based upon need, and that can be a scary proposition at times. My floor is Eric Downing. Do you even remember Eric Downing? Dick Vermeil years, boys. You got to go back to the Dick Vermeil years. In fact, it was the year that Dick Vermeil had no first and no second. The first had gone for Trent Green. The second went for getting Dick Vermeil. They took Eric Downing, sloppy-bodied D tackle from Syracuse, who amassed 2 whole sacks.
No, that's how you know who he is.
Yeah.
No, I remember taking Eric Downing, and I remember going, listen, I root for this team, and I wouldn't have taken this guy. Okay, so it was, it was not good, and he did very little in the NFL, and I think that is a possibility here. I think, we keep hearing, well, they had so many D tackles, and they, Tennessee, they're trying to keep everybody happy. If you're great, you play, right? So there's no great, and he didn't play a lot, and so I think there is a bust factor, a big one here with him. Top end is Glenn Dorsey, and which is a guy. Like I'm not convinced. I'll be happy.
How many sacks did Dorsey have?
Not many. I mean,
I'm just recalling that you said it would take 25 sacks to call this guy a success. He had 7 in his career. So you think his ceiling is a third of the way to your success?
Well, but again, one was what it takes, not what I'm predicting.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This is closer to a prediction. That's what I'm saying. You think this guy's ceiling is getting a third of the way to the successful draft?
I think when you take a guy and freely admit he's not going to play the run and that he's a pass rusher, he better rush the passer.
Absolutely should, yeah.
There's no way around it when you're like, he's a rotational guy, he's a situational guy. Then he better be goddamn good at what you took him to do. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think you come out of college football as a situational guy. I don't think anybody who's a situational guy ends up being the bomb. I think
that's a second round pick.
I know. This is the pick I like the least out of what they did. And I'm going to give mad props to Brett Veach if I'm wrong. I will be happy as a Chiefs fan to give mad props to Brett Veach if I'm wrong. I really do. I truly hope that I'm wrong about this and that he ends up being a great pick, but I'm hard pressed to see that being the case. Listen, if you want a great pick when it comes to your parking lot, one company, one contractor, all things parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Your favorites are back, Kansas City. Now for a limited time at all your KC Whataburger locations, get the Mushroom and Swiss Burger, 2 large beef patties, Swiss American cheese, fire-roasted mushrooms, and creamy au jus. How about the sweet and spicy bacon burger, 2 large beef patties, American and Monterey Jack cheese, bacon, grilled onions, and topped with sweet and spicy pepper sauce. Or grab the patty melt, even the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. They're all perfect with the Whataburger Banana Pudding Shake. Remember, Whataburger's open 24 hours a day with breakfast served from 11 p. to 11 a. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. All right, let's keep things rolling here. We go to the third round. Ashton Gillotte, Sam. Ashton Gillotte. How tough was this one?
I didn't think it was that tough. I've got his ceiling as George Karlaftis.
Okay.
I think that is even a likely possibility that he turns out to be George Karlaftis. I mean, look, it's not that they're coached by the same guy. They train together. I think the things we heard about George Karlaftis coming out of the draft mimic what we're hearing about Ashton Gillotte coming out of the draft. It's this guy who plays 100 miles an hour. He's going to get some effort plays. For his floor, I have Tyson Jackson, a guy who stays on the field because you like that he's able to play assignment football, but he's not a disruptor in the backfield. The athleticism isn't what you thought maybe. Doesn't have the bend that you thought to get around the corner. And Tyson Jackson winds up with 9 sacks in his career. So that's what I've got.
Okay. All right. I like that. I think that's pretty strong. Jeff, how'd you see it?
I think Sam's stealing my material. He must have like some kind of, hacked into my computer, my cell phone. Yeah, well, just George Karlaftis was the ceiling. The floor is different, but it's Karlaftis for all the same reasons. I mean, he's built the same way, plays the same way. A hustle guy, an effort guy. You know, if he ends up being an 8 or 9 sack guy, that might be a great thing for a year. I'm not expecting him to be a double-digit guy by any means. The floor, Mike Dana, because to me, Mike Dana is a similar player, just a lesser performer. And, he had a couple of years ago, he did enough to get a contract extension, but after that extension last year, he didn't look like the same player. And so to me, it feels like he could be somebody who, if he's hustling and getting it done, great. If he's not, he's going to have a lot of people knocking him for his lack of talent. So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
I was looking, I wanted to come away and say someone like if we would go off the board, non-Chiefs, like I'd love to be able to say Trey Hendrickson because he was a 3rd round pick, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for. The problem, I want to see this. I want to double check these. Arm length, 31 and 7/8. Trey Hendrickson's arm length was 32 inches. So, I mean, I think that's not a bad comp if you want to dream a dream, kind of where they went and to then be an elite pass rusher. Usually the elite pass rushers are 1st-round picks. I didn't go that far. I, too, had George Karlaftis, and I, too, had Michael Dana on the low end. I had the same thing that you did.
So you're in my computer, too.
Yeah, and I think the gap is narrow because I feel like there's a high floor, but there's not that much ceiling. He's going to be a try-hard guy. He's going to be a bull rush type guy. He's going to be a coverage sack type guy. You're going to like having him on your team, but you're always going to be searching for that real, roar off the edge guy opposite him. And you can win with these two, especially if you're a team that's got the quarterback and you can get some coverage sacks, that'll work. If you have 2 George Karlaftises on the outside and you have Chris Jones on the inside, you look pretty good, right? I don't know that he's going to be that fast, but you look pretty good if that ends up being the combinations that you have here. I don't think anybody would complain if that's what it was. All right, Nohl Williams. Sam, where do you go with the cornerback? Was this one was harder for me?
Yeah, this one was actually the one that I thought took me the longest to complete. For his ceiling, I had Brassard Breeland. He was a guy who was not afraid to stick his nose in there and be part of the run game tackling. His first 3 years in Washington, he winds up with 66, 81, and 73 tackles. But really, the comp here is the fact that Brassard Breeland, when he was in his prime, was involved in turnovers. He had 7 interceptions in his first 3 years and forced 7 fumbles. So 14 potential turnovers he's a part of in his first 3 years. And to me, that's what Nohl Williams is at his peak, at his ceiling, is a guy who's involved in a lot of turnovers. Right. For his floor, I have Phillip Gaines, another third-round pick. The profile on him was that the ball skills will have to carry the day, was one of the scouting reports I read on him. Nohl Williams plays more physical than Phillip Gaines ever did, but for a floor, I think that's a pretty good floor to where he could possibly be.
So you like him as a high floor guy, but not a whole lot of ceiling.
I don't know how high Phillip Gaines is.
Well, I'm just considering what you last said. You said, your last comment made it sound like you thought he was, going to be so. So I
think he's a guy that sticks around on the roster and that he will get a chance to play some snaps, but I don't know that that's a super high floor.
Okay, so you're not entirely convinced on him as a player.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, I think right. When we all do this exercise, we're predicting they fall somewhere in between the two guys, is what we're saying, right? Like, so I think they fall somewhere in between those two guys.
Well,
but I think he's got the capability to not have the tools that the Chiefs think that he has.
Do you exist in the middle of your floor, or do you exist in between your floor and your ceiling? Yes, we're all predicting that they'll be between.
Well, that's why I answered that way.
All right, Jeff, what do you got?
I went with my ceiling was Charvarius Ward, who similar build, similar genre as what Sam's talking about here, but I think a guy who was better suited to play in a more of a zone defense. You saw that with the 49ers. He became an all-pro there. I think he was an okay player here. I was never that crazy about him in this system because I didn't think he was a great man coverage guy. And I think Williams is going to fall in the same category. I think he's going to be great finding the ball and being able to make plays. But I think he could also, if you put him on an island too much, he could also be Nazi Johnson for you. And then the floor was William Barty going back in time. A guy.
Oh God, that's rough.
Oh, but I haven't disagreed with any of these. Barty never even turned around. Nohl Williams is an interception guy.
Hey, I'm trying to give you something to talk about here. We can't keep going with the more recent.
I agree.
Guys, so.
I agree with you.
I will say his ball skills may go away if he's not fast enough, and his 40 times not great.
Yeah.
Yes, and the scouting reports are that he moves indicative of that 40 time. Like that is the reason that he was a third round pick and not, a late first, early second round pick.
Yeah, the productivity said first, and he went in the third for a reason, and it's step 40. But now, if you can really turn and read guys and know what's coming, then you can be productive. So, but William Barty was right there with Julian Battle. It was a time when they had success with Dale Carter, so they kept taking these safety guys and were going to convert them to corners, and it was an unmitigated disaster. I mean,
that's my point. That's why he's my floor.
Yeah, listen. I hope you're wrong. I have no problem. I don't have a problem with anybody's floor.
Tommy's never had an interception. That's why I picked him.
Yeah, I mean, William Barty blew. God, he was bad.
And he played 60 games for this team.
Yeah, I'm higher clearly on this player than you guys are because my floor is Eric Warfield. And I saw that in the comments section.
The floor is Eric Warfield.
Floor is Eric Warfield.
That's a high floor.
Wow, that's a really high floor.
The floor. Well, I don't think you remember the whole Eric Warfield package. He played a lot, and for about a year was considered a success. The rest of the time, everybody bitched about Eric Warfield. You guys didn't have to take the calls.
I know people
during the Eric Warfield era. So
the guy played 8 years in the league and had 20 interceptions. Like that's a high floor.
Yeah, I think the guy. Well,
I thought Phillip Gaines was a high floor.
Again, I use draft picks only. I think he is going to play, and I think he is going to be productive, right? Is he going to be a star? My upper end is Brandon Carr. Like, I do think he's the kind of guy that's going to have a fairly long career because of the ball skills. I don't think the interceptions will be near as high in the league. But I think with that 40 time in those interceptions, I think he's clearly a student of the game. He went to Cal. Should be a fairly smart kid going to Cal. And so I think he's going to be a pretty good student of the game. And I think he's going to be a guy that, I think you're probably going to love having him be your third corner. You're going to be okay with him being your second corner. And I think if he's your number one corner, you're in trouble. And that was the Chiefs with Eric Warfield. That was exactly his time when he first broke in and he wasn't having to cover the top guy. You're like, this is a hell of a find in the 7th round. And then when suddenly you looked around and he was your number one corner and had to cover number one wideouts, you're like, we are screwed. Why are we doing this? And I think that's probably, where you will be. Brandon Carr was just a good physical corner that I think you loved having as your number 2 guy. And I would say that's the upside, is that the ball skills translate, study, he's a smart player. And so you end up being like, we're real happy to have Brandon Carr. And then as he starts aging, he's a real good guy to have as your 3rd or 4th corner for a long time, and he has a long career. But for the first 4 or 5 years, I think the upside is that you're like, we're happy having this guy as our number 2 corner. That's what I saw Brandon Carr as. He was number 2 to Brandon Flowers, hung around for a long time. He played for he just retired like 10 minutes ago, I think. He was playing
in Dallas for a long time.
Yeah, he was in Dallas for a long time.
Baltimore, I think, for a little bit.
He was a good player for sure. And so you don't see Jeff. You don't have Charvarius Ward's pretty good upside. What's the difference really between Brandon Carr and Charvarius Ward right now?
That's about the same. That's the same. Yeah, I would put them in the same boat.
Yeah, I think that's
well. Neither one of us criticized Brandon Carr. When we don't criticize a player, Soren just keeps talking, waiting on us to finally butt in and say it's a terrible pick.
That's right. Yeah.
I like Brandon Carr.
I'm fine with it. Yeah,
I like Brandon Carr. That's a good one. I think that's a better one than what I had actually, which was Breland.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm also, trying to read the poker faces a little bit here. Like, okay, what are we getting here?
I thought Brandon Carr. I almost went with Brandon Carr for my guy. Yeah, okay. I was close with that.
Okay, all right. You can always support the Red Gold and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors. Our great sponsors like Suede Cannabis and of course Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
Big moves, bigger vibes. If you haven't heard, Besame Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Our colors and name may have changed, but you'll still experience the same great service on top of better deals, longer hours, and faster delivery. Smithville, Liberty, Kansas City, Warrensburg, and North Kansas City. No matter which location you visit, you'll feel right at home. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuedeCannabis.com. Life should be dope. Let's make it happen. Suede Cannabis.
All right, up next is one of the ones I'm the most excited to hear from you guys on. Jalen Royals. I think this could be pretty interesting. This could be pretty creative. Sam, Jalen Royals, wide receiver, Utah State, 4th rounder. What are your comps?
On this one, man, I went through a lot of different players, and I feel like I couldn't quite find like the exact match I wanted for either of these guys. But for the floor, I've got Byron Pringle. A guy who relied on his toughness, didn't get great separation, had one breakout year, which I think was like 500 and some odd yards. But still, those yards came because he was good after the catch that year for the Chiefs. No other year did he have more than 200 yards in a season. So I've got Byron Pringle for the floor. For the ceiling, I've got 2019 Sammy Watkins for the Chiefs. Soren loves it when I just add the specifics of the year.
Yeah. Hey, it's your
I already did the exercise. I can't go back now. So I had 2019 Sammy Watkins, still shy of 1,000 yards, but Sammy Watkins was terrific after the catch that year, and he played a very specific role for the Chiefs, which was the X receiver. I think people think of Sammy Watkins as the speed guy, although him and Royals ran almost identical 40 times. But really, when Sammy Watkins came to Kansas City, they had him play the underneath role, the X receiver that got the intermediate stuff. And to me, that's the ceiling for Jalen Royals, is that he fills that X spot in your formation.
I think that's a great point about their 40 times, but that was at a time when nobody ran 4.3 something.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was a different.
But my point is they didn't use Sammy Watkins because of his speed.
Right.
I mean, certainly, shouldn't say not because of his speed. I'm saying he wasn't the go route guy. He wasn't the Marquez Valdez-Scantling role here in Kansas City.
But I do want to point out that I think that is how it's changed, and that's not that long ago that Sammy Watkins was drafted. But like, you could be the fastest 40 at the combine at like 4.41, and Sammy Watkins was close to it. He was one of the top 40 times that year. Now 4.41, you're in the middle of the pack. 4.28 led it this year with the corner from Kentucky, and so it is a different time. But you are right about how Sammy Watkins was used as well. But I just think that's interesting point there. All right, Jeff, where do you
go? Ceiling is Kevin Lockett, who I think one of us said 2,000-yard receiving in his career here in the first 3-4 years he's here. And Kevin Lockett had 1,700 receiving yards for his career. I think he was a second-round pick. Solid player. It's very tempting to go to Rashee Rice, but I think a lot of things have to break right for this guy to get into that position where he's having the kind of career where you say he's on a really strong trajectory to be a 10, a 20, $30 million receiver in this league. So I'm going to be a little bit safer on the ceiling and stick with Kevin Lockett. On the floor, I'm going Crefonzo Thorpe.
Crapfonzo.
Yeah. Actually, I just wanted to say his name. I'm not going Crefonzo. I just like to say that. I haven't said it in like 20 years. That's wanted to say it. Floor is DeMarcus Robinson.
I'm just waiting. There's always a delay to the comment room. Tommy is going to jump all over Crefonzo Thorpe. It's going to come flying out of there as soon as he sees that here in a minute on YouTube.
Yeah. Now, floor is DeMarcus Robinson, a player who ends up being, a third or fourth receiver, probably has to go elsewhere to do more.
Not a bad floor.
Yeah. It was, DeMarcus Robinson, I think when he was here, what he was away from here was a lot better than what he was here. I think people here were always hoping he'd be more than what he became. He had skills, and you're seeing that. You saw that at the Rams with the right coaching, but I just think this guy, depending on the numbers and who they bring in and how Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice grow, it's just, will he have the opportunity to really blossom, or will he be hurt by limited opportunities?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think DeMarcus, I agree. He was always better when he left here. And I don't know if that's because there were better guys in front of him here, because he was behind Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, or was it like they had expectations here and he just kind of did his own thing, right? Because like his best plays were like when it had broken down and they'd send it, to him. All right, this Jalen Royals I thought would be easy, and I found him to be hard, but I think there's a huge gap here. All right, a huge gap. Floor, Lake Dawson, complete bust. Lake Dawson went in the third round. Everybody thought he was going to be, they compared him to Jerry Rice. He wore number 80, and they did. In this town, they did.
Wow.
Yes,
his family?
Camp,
his family?
Him. Yes, people would call me and say
his agent.
No, Chiefs fans used the term Jerry Rice, and they were right. Part of it was also Joe Montana was the quarterback.
Luke Dawson had 100 catches and 10 touchdowns in his career, 1,400 yards. That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, that's my floor. And I'll be honest with you, I might be generous. I think this could go Sky Moore. I thought about Sky Moore, but I also tried to get body type. And Sky Moore's smaller.
Yeah.
I think Sky Moore's like 5'2", based upon what I feel like he is when I'm standing next to him. But I think he's really about 5'9". But I think it could go really, really wrong. I really do. I mean, I think it does bother me that nobody wanted this kid to transfer. It does bother me that he didn't go higher. I hear he's a super quiet kid, and I'm like, well, okay, why is he quiet? That does scare me. Okay, I want to be clear about that. So I am a little bit nervous. The upside, though, like if all that is like, so what? He digests the playbook. He's got it all figured out. What are we talking about here, guys? Then I think at that point, I think the physical tools, the 4.40, Arms aren't as long as Rashee Rice. I went through the Rashee Rice thing. There are some comparable things there. Rashee Rice, probably a better all-around athlete, not quite the 40, but a better all-around athlete. But a guy that was kind of quiet, you didn't hear much from, and he actually never did that much with the Chiefs, but when he left, he kind of blew up, Joe Horn. Because I do think there are a lot of physical tools here. So I think it may be almost nothing to nothing. Sky Moore, again, Lake Dawson-ish, but all the way to Joe Horn. I think the physical tools, if he had done what he did over the last 2 years at USC, he's top of the second round. Top of the second round. So I think there's upside there for him. So that's where I went. Joe Horn. Any reaction?
This one was actually the one where I actually thought there was a player that I wanted to compare him to, but I didn't think floor or ceiling made sense. And I think it's just the most accurate potential comparison, which was Albert Wilson. Really stood out to me when I looked through former Chiefs receivers. A guy who made a living out of the tough yards, who was terrific yards after catch for his career. I didn't realize exactly how good Albert Wilson was after the catch. 6.7 yards after the catch for his career. Survived in the league for quite a while, too. I think 7 years, and he skipped the COVID year, could have been 8. And so that one I was like, man, this fits, but I don't want to say it's the floor or the ceiling. I think he could be worse. I think he could be better than that. But that was the only one that I went through that I was like, well, there does seem to be an actual Chiefs comp for this potentially.
Okay. I like it. All right, let's go to the linebacker, Jeffrey Bassa. Sam, where'd you go here? Floor and ceiling.
For the ceiling, I went with Marvcus Patton. 8 years with multiple interceptions, good in coverage, played a long time. Actually went pretty deep into the weeds on this and found out that he was an all-academic guy, and that's all we've heard. I mean, Bassett's talked to the media once and twice, and I mean, incredibly impressive. 1998 article in the Washington Post called him the brains of the defense, FYI. And I bet that article never thought they'd get called out in the 2025 Chiefs podcast, but here we are.
Seems like for the Johnson County Library looking at microfilm.
That's how difficult it was to try and find.
Is there a rotator?
Microfilm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
God, that brings up some bad research memories. Yeah. For the floor, I had Ben Neiman. I think that Bassa is a faster player, but he didn't have that great of a RAS score. Neiman was a guy who stayed on because of his intangibles. He was good in special teams, but didn't quite have all the tools to put together. So I think that's the floor for Bassa. I think he, at minimum, will be a guy who sticks around and contributes in some way. Interesting.
All right, Jeff.
I had Drew Tranquill as my ceiling. I think that was the easiest one to go to because I think look at Drew Tranquill's career in the Chargers, and he was not that beloved. A guy who really built himself up and did some things to get a contract here and then found a home. And so I think Bassa will progress faster here because he'll probably take Drew Tranquill's spot. But I like the skill set. I think he's very similar. I think Tranquill was a safety at some point earlier in his football career, and Bassa was as well. Both very versatile. And on the lower end of it, the floor, I went with DorianO'Daniel. Harder to find linebackers who are similar. But DorianO'Daniel, when he showed up here, was supposed to be kind of an athletic specialist, pass coverage type guy. You could play in different situations, and a special team guy. And he just became a special teams guy. And so I could see Bassa, if things don't go right for him, just being a guy who Dave Tobe relies a lot on. Quick aside, I actually saw DorianO'Daniel when I was on vacation in the Amalfi Coast a couple of years ago, and there was some guy, big black guy in the water with a Chiefs arrowhead on his back, and I was like, who the hell is this guy walking around? I look closer, it's like, that's DorianO'Daniel. Like that. That's the last time I saw him was on the Amalfi Coast.
Can I just offer you unbelievable mad props for being able to recognize DorianO'Daniel?
I didn't recognize him. I looked at the guy for like 20 minutes trying to figure out who's the big black guy.
But you eventually settled on it, right?
Yeah.
Like
he had number 44 and an arrowhead on his back.
Mad props. No shot. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
Who else is going to have a 44 Chiefs?
Eric Warfield I could pick out of a lineup.
You said he had a 44 tattoo with the Chiefs. Who else is going to have that?
Well, but I'm saying, okay. But like looking at him in the face, you knew who it was? Just like, that's DorianO'Daniel.
No, I had no idea who he was.
If I saw 44 Chiefs, yeah, I might back ass into it that way. I have 44 tattoo and a Chiefs logo, but like I honestly have no idea what DorianO'Daniel's looks like. Never once would I head over to his. The day they took him, I'm like, they just took a kick cover guy in the 3rd round, and I nailed it.
Yeah.
I nailed it. I think Boss is better. I think he's better than that. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play linebacker. I don't know that he's going to play a lot. I'm high on this. I've got a floor of Kerryon Fox. You remember Kerryon Fox playing for the Chiefs? I think he's kind of a Kerryon Fox was kind of a. They wanted to play him outside. He ended up playing inside for the Steelers when he left Kansas City, and you know that kind of reminded me of Bassa. But I think if it all clicks, there was a 4th round pick that played outside and played inside linebacker that ended up being really good. You know who it was?
Edwards.
Donnie Edwards. Yeah, Donnie Edwards.
That's a pretty high ceiling.
That is a high ceiling.
It is a high ceiling, but like I'm with you. I'm impressed by the kid. He was like the number 6 or 7 linebacker in this class. I mean, I think there's going to be opportunity pretty quick here. I like the versatility. It's a high ceiling. It's probably too high, but I wanted Chiefs draft picks, and I didn't want to take some. I don't want to go Percy Snow or something like that. So Donnie Edwards it is. I landed on Donnie Edwards. All right, Brassard Smith. Where do you go, Sam?
Well, I've got another specific year one, so just
Okay.
I've got Dexter McCluster's 2nd year with the Chiefs.
What year is that? I need years
for his ceiling.
Yeah. Well, that was a.
What year would have been his second one? Like
I was going to say
10,
1972 Ed Podolak.
Hang on, he would have been 9. Would he have been?
11 was his second year.
11 would have been his
516 rushing yards, caught 46 passes that year, almost 1,000 total yards, and he was the return man too. So I've got that. I've got that for his ceiling.
Yeah,
and my most obscure one I'm saving for last, which is his floor. I've got Tremon Smith. And you might say, well, Tremon Smith is a cornerback, in which I would respond, he was never a cornerback. He was never a wide receiver. He plays one role only, which was a kick returner. And I think that's the floor for Brassard Smith, is he can't get onto the field as a running back. And so they might list him as a running back, but it doesn't really matter where they list him because he's actually just a kick returner. By the way, Tremon Smith has lasted in the NFL 8 years with 1 return touchdown in his career. Great agent. Tremon Smith's got a great agent.
A great agent. All right, Jeff.
I wanted to go Jerick McKinnon here, but I think that's just too much of a reach for an exercise like this. So I went the Anthony Thomas.
Let me tell you something. That's who all our listeners want you to go.
Yeah. I can't get there. Paul Palmer's not a bad one, though.
Yeah.
I went with DeAnthony Thomas as the ceiling.
For which one? Ceiling?
Yeah. The ceiling. Yeah.
Wait, DeAnthony Thomas is the ceiling?
Yeah. Remember he came out of college? He was this electric talent who was supposed to do all these things.
God, they should cut him out of camp at his ceiling.
He ended up being a return guy, a return guy and a gimmick guy. I think this dude has the same. This guy was a wide receiver for a lot of his career, right, in college.
So you've
got running back.
You've got no ceiling almost. I mean,
DeAnthony Thomas never rushed for more than 113 yards in a season.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
31 for 191 yards.
We know what you're saying. Do you know what you're saying?
Yeah.
113 yards.
31 for 191 and 65 for 509.
Yeah. Well, the floor is Darwin Thompson. And so he's a little bit lower than that, right?
Is there? Could you fit a piece
of
paper between
225 career rushing yards and 108 career receiving yards?
Hey, name me any player that's between Darwin Thompson and Anthony Thomas.
Hey, I just went for the short, fast guys who didn't do anything in the league. So that's kind of where
you went with the floor and the underground.
That's right.
Brassard Smith.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, you could not fit a needle in between those two.
Yeah.
You hate this guy.
I kind of love it. Darwin Thompson on the floor had 333 yards from scrimmage. And then on the ceiling, DeAnthony Thomas, what year did we say he was?
Well, he had 509 receiving yards and 191 rushing. So he's at what, almost 700
twice production.
He's exactly 700, I guess, total yards from scrimmage.
Wow. Oh man,
ceiling.
There's 300 yards. This is my favorite one we've ever done before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is, by the way, if he rolls in with 480 yards, Jeff, I mean, I try not to say anything stupid that I actually have to turn around and, I'll kiss your ass. And then I end up having to do something stupid. I don't know. I will definitely buy you dinner, a nice bottle. If you win between those two, you are going to get a mad reward from me.
There you go.
I'm going to tell you that right now.
When he blurted out Thomas, I didn't know whether it was ceiling or floor.
Yeah. It's both.
It really is. I kicked around a lot. This was hard for me, but I'm not as high. Honestly, at one point, I'm like, all right, is the upside? Is it Joe Delaney? And I'm like, no chance. He's the kind of running back that Joe Delaney was. So I came off Joe Delaney on the high end. I am going with and I also had Darwin Thompson. Was another name I kicked around on the low end. But instead, my ceiling is Todd McNair. Couple thousand yards. Catch the ball out of the backfield. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Couple thousand? You're going with this? 1,000 yards?
No, in his career, he had a couple
career. Not 2,000-yard seasons. Yeah.
No, Todd McNair had a couple thousand yards receiving in his career. It was a nice third down back, right? And so I could see that clicking, right? That he gets it there. And then the floor, who remembers a guy by the name of Michael Pinball Clemens?
I do not.
Yeah.
Do you, Jeff?
What year is that? It gets to do the Sam thing and tell him it's 1993.
Oh, it is.
Sam Pinball, Michael Pinball Clemens.
Pinball Clemens played. It might be even older than that. I got to remember. He was drafted in the.
Drafted in '87.
Yes, he was drafted in the Frank Gans.
7 yards from scrimmage. I mean, this is a floor.
This is a floor.
7
right?
yards. 7 yards.
7 yards.
Unless you find someone who had 0 and you really want to try and sandwich between 0 and 7.
Yeah. No, Clemens is the floor. Yeah. Todd McNair's the ceiling. But Michael Pinball Clemens, do you know what his claim to fame was? What his greatest accomplishment was? He actually did do something. He was an MVP.
Well, I guess his claim to fame is having a nickname called Pinball when he has 7 yards from scrimmage.
Well, they listed him. Let me tell you, they listed him, and this has always been completely wrong. They listed him. First of all, I think he had a sweet Jerry curl too. 5'5", 166 when he was taken. And Frank Gans, special teams guy, took him, wanted him as a kick returner, and they got him out of William and Mary. He actually was the MVP of the CFL, and he did it while being teammates with Rocket Ismail. And Rocket Ismail's first year, Michael Pinball Clemens won the CFL MVP.
I do vaguely remember him now.
Do you know? Yeah. Do you know it actually gets better than that?
What gets better than that?
He's actually the general manager.
Yeah.
For the Toronto Argonauts, and he's won 2 Grey Cups.
He's an icon in Canada, right?
This isn't a floor. This is a ceiling.
Yeah. But I'm talking about what he was in the NFL. But he went up to the CFL. They'd throw him the ball out of the backfield a lot. He'd run it a little bit, and he was a punt and kick return nightmare on that big field. And he had something like 2,600 yards of offense for the Argonauts. And
I was going to say, in the NFL, he just returned 1 kick for 3 yards. Kickoff, he returned 1 for 3 yards.
Yeah, they decided he was too small.
And that was
too small. So that's I do think when you draft a guy basically to be a kick returner, I think you can have a complete bust on you.
Yeah.
So I'll close with this. Like one of the things that I saw a lot of is I think that there's more bustability. When I went through this exercise, I came away thinking, like when I first did the draft, I loved it. And I likened it today to you open your toys on Christmas, it's great. And then a month later, you're like, this toy car sucks. The wheels don't work, it kind of wobbles. It's all kind of scratched up and you don't play with it anymore. Like when I first opened it, I'm like, oh yeah, I see all the upside on these guys. Now on some of them, I'm like, ooh, there's some downside there. Ooh, there's some downside there. Ooh, there's some downside there. So I'll say this. I did come away a little bit more pessimistic, right? A little bit more pessimistic. I'll leave it at that. That's where I was. You'll never be pessimistic if you call Gann Asphalt and Concrete. You can support the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Been with us for years. Kansas City's best, more than 30 years, fixing all things parking lot. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Our friends at Whataburger, they brought back some of your favorites. Right now, you can get the mushroom and Swiss burger, the sweet and spicy bacon burger, the patty melt. My personal favorite, check it out, the honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. It's great. Wash it all down with a banana pudding shake. Remember, they're open 24 hours at Whataburger. Breakfast, 11 p. to 11 a. You can get it. And Suede Cannabis. If you haven't heard, Best of Me Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuedeCannabis.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.